Good afternoon, everyone. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Well, thank you, Howard, for that introduction. I've got a lot to live up to there. I hope I don't disappoint. I'm going to talk to you today about the caring experience and sort of what we find as an organisation or as a collection of organisations supporting carers. Some of the big issues that we help to support carers with, because caring is a journey. Some people are on it for many years, some people are only on it for a few months, but there's quite often quite a lot of commonality between people's experiences. So, in terms of defining who a carer is, this is the definition that Carers Trust uses. That a carer is anyone who cares unpaid for a friend, family member who, due to illness, disability, a mental health problem or an addiction, cannot cope without their support. And one of the things that we find, and we'll come to that a little bit later, is a lot of carers don't actually identify themselves as a carer. They don't see themselves as a carer. And we'll talk a bit later about some of the reasons for that. But sometimes it is actually they just don't realise that they are a carer. So that's why I put that definition up, because I feel that's quite important. Some brief statistical information for you. There are over 7 million carers in the UK now, with a population of around 60 million. So an awful lot of people in our communities are carers, but how many, if we were to think about the street we live in, how many of them would we know? Would we know how many in our own community were carers? Quite often, caring is hidden, especially when you're dealing with an issue like mental health, where it's not actually a visible condition, it's a hidden condition. So would you realise that person's caring for someone with a mental health condition? Over 1.5 million people in the UK are caring for someone with a mental health condition. So that's one in four carers are mental health carers, and one in every 40 people in the population cares for someone with a mental health condition. And one of the issues we constantly face is that carers feel stigmatised, in particular carers of someone with a mental health condition. But actually, how common is it? 1 in 40, 1 in 4 of every carer is caring for someone with a mental health condition. So we're dealing with quite sizable numbers here, but often going on under the radar in our society without us realising it. We're expecting the numbers of carers to rise by over 40% by 2037, meaning there'll be 9 million carers in our population. And over nearly 2.5 million of those people are also juggling other responsibilities, including caring for elderly relatives and children, as well as caring for someone else. Or it might be that they're caring for an elderly relative, but they're also caring for a family of their own. The impact of caring. Carers Trust did some work, and in the survey they found that 75% of carers said it was hard to maintain their relationships and social networks because the wider community and even their own family didn't understand the impact the caring had on them as individuals. That's quite a startling statistic. And carers providing round-the-clock care are more than twice as likely to be of bad health than non-carers. And I know we're going to talk about well-being for carers a bit later. It's a really important issue. Quite often the carer prioritises the person's health that they're caring for and often forgets about their own health and well-being. And a lot of people caring for someone with a mental health condition are also caring round the clock. There's a sort of misconception that the only people caring round the clock are those carers who are caring for someone with a physical impairment or something that's very visible, but actually many more carers caring for something that isn't visible are providing round-the-clock care. So there's an awful lot of misinformation about carers, and one of our roles is to really try and get key messages out there about carers and to carers. So, do carers seek support? Well, when Princess Royal Trust for Carers and Crossroads Care merged, at that point, the carers centres that sat within Princess Royal for Carers, out of all the carers that they were in contact with, all the centres around the UK, only 9% were mental health carers. So if we think about that for a moment, 1 in 4 carers are caring for someone with a mental health condition, and yet the National Carers Organisation only knew of, out of the people they were supporting collectively, only 9%. So where are the other 16%? Why aren't they accessing support? And in terms of our own support, we've supported about 4,000 carers in Norfolk, but excluding dementia, which about 16% of carers supported by the Carers Agency Partnership look after with someone with a mental health issue. So actually, we're not really getting to the proportion of mental health carers that we would expect to get to. And we need to look at why that is. So I've put this up. When you first become a carer, at what point do you realise that you are a carer? Who do you see yourself as? Many people we work with, many people we talk to, they see themselves first and foremost as a husband, or as a son, or a neighbour, or a wife, or a friend, not as a carer. And quite often people are confused about where the boundaries lay between those roles. When does it change? When do you become a carer? When you're no longer doing something that ordinarily would be expected that you do as a wife or a husband? When does it move to becoming a carer? And is that label important or not? It's important in that it's a way of accessing support, of people recognising that you have needs above and beyond those of other people. But one of the things that we really, what people struggle with is, how do I maintain that balance between, how do I maintain those multiple identities? How do I maintain my role as a husband or a wife, and how do I maintain a role as a carer and not being overburdened by being a carer? And that's something that we really, we try and support people with. And it's important that if someone is in a caring situation, they still feel that their other part of their identity is protected. And part of the way of doing that is providing that support to ensure that a carer is able to remain the parent or the husband, the spouse. One of the carers I spoke to recently said, we love to go out and have coffee. And actually in that time we go out and have coffee, that's our time as husband and wife. We don't think about the things that we need to do as a carer and person being cared for. It's just that's our time. And it's really important to carers' health and well-being that they're able to protect their identity in that other role. So, we did a listening event. I mean, this is quite negative, but you see, that's part of the journey, is accepting that things have changed and addressing those changes and trying to find a positive way through that to a place where you feel able to carry on. But we did a listening event with carers in Norfolk, and we're hoping to do it in other parts of Norfolk as well. We did sort of one of these word association games. So, when you associate mental health and caring, what were the things that came to mind? And some of the things were obvious, and some of them were perhaps less obvious. One of the things was that they can often feel isolated in their caring role. They also, in particular with mental health as opposed to some other types of caring roles, they felt there was a stigma attached to it, that they didn't want to talk about it, that they didn't want to identify themselves as someone who was caring for a person with mental health issues. Also that there was an unpredictability about the caring role. They couldn't plan ahead. It wasn't as if with someone with a sort of set of physical conditions that were predictable about how they, sometimes someone with physical conditions is very unpredictable from one day to the next, but many people who are caring for someone with a physical condition can sort of roughly estimate what they can do, when they can do it. But these carers were saying, actually, we can't plan ahead, we can't commit to come to these meetings or go out to socialise in this way, because we never know what it's going to be like from one day to the next. Some of them felt that they were being judged if they were known to be carers of someone with a mental health condition, and that comes back to the stigma. Other things were they felt it was really non-stop, that they didn't really get a break. And also, we never really talk about this in the middle here, but some of them actually felt resentful for the fact that they were caring, the fact that they didn't feel that's what they signed up for. Other people took the view that that was what they had signed up for, and that was their lot, and that they didn't need support, they just had to carry on. And so, one of the things we do with people is to try and work through some of that. And find out how we can actually give people some choice and control back by putting the support in. And one of the things, in terms of the caring journey, is maybe it's important to acknowledge that resentfulness, or if you're feeling unhappy about the caring situation, because I've put here recovery roadblocks. It's not just a roadblock to recovery for the person with the condition, it's also roadblocks for the carer. That they've got to acknowledge some of these issues, the dual identity. They've got to acknowledge the fact that things have changed, acknowledge that that there are things that they can't control anymore, and find a sort of positive way to move forward with that. One of the things that we've done is we're introducing something called the Carer's Star, which is very similar to the Recovery Star. And it's what it says. I was hoping to have a picture for you, but I haven't. It's literally a star, and it looks at different aspects of the carer's life, from finances through to having a break to managing at home, and there's a score, and we work with the carer to sort of score, find out where they are at that particular moment, and then a few weeks later, when we've been working with the carer, to go back and redo the process, and each time we draw a shape, and that shape gives that carer a visual recognition of how far they've come on their caring journey. Now sometimes they won't come very far in a few weeks. What we're trying to avoid is someone going from a high score to a lower score. Obviously we want people to make progress, but sometimes that support is about accepting that for that moment in time there won't necessarily be any progress. It really depends on the individual and the individual situation, but it helps the carer to identify their own needs, their own situation and where they are, and set goals for where they want to be. So we can try and move away from quite so much negativity as is here into something more positive where they've got more choice and control. Have I got my assistant, Shell? Hello. We thought we'd sort of break it up a little by doing an activity which Shell did with the CAP team a few weeks ago. And this is about this asset-based community development approach. So it's about helping people to see, well, I won't spoil it too much, but it's about trying to get people to think about themselves and about how they sit in their communities. And it's something we're keen to try with carers. So Shell's just going to pass some Postits round. So this isn't compulsory, so feel free to decline if you don't want to participate. If you can fill in, Shell, have we got enough for 3 Postits each?
Yes, I think so.
So if we've got 3 Postits each, we've got Shell's put up a couple of large pieces of paper. So what we'd like you to do is we'd like you to fill in 3 post-its. On one, we'd like you to put down something that you're quite knowledgeable about. Is there a particular issue or area of knowledge that you have? Could be about motorsport, could be about flowers, could be anything, could be the law. Anything that you feel you've got a good knowledge of. On the second one, we'd like you to write something that you're passionate about, something you really care about. And on the third one, we'd like you to write something about, is there anything you're good at doing with your hands? Anything you're skilled at physically? That might be flower arranging, it could be tying a knot. And we'll sort of pass it round and see what people come up with, and the results will be quite interesting. I think we've got good knowledge of computers, delivering care, baking, that's a good one, music, attachment theory, science of mental health, trying to get, local community, that's a good one. So those are some head ones. And then we've got some hands. Playing musical instruments. Engineering, something. Playing, I think that's playing the ukulele. Gardening. Cleaning. Someone can play the guitar. Craft work. Cooking. DIY. I want to know that person. And then heart. Football. Grandchildren. Supporting others affected by substance misuse. Family living, someone's put it. Inclusion. Thank you. As I said, we'll capture those. The point of that activity, we've rushed it a little because of the time, but the point of that is to say that we can all be defined by identities. We can all be shoehorned in, whether that be we're a consultant or we're a carer or we're someone with a mental health condition. But we're never only one thing. We should never be defined entirely by one identity. And actually one of the things we find is sometimes carers feel completely overwhelmed by their caring role or their identity as a carer, and sometimes they feel that they don't have anything else to offer, that they lack confidence. And actually what we've shown here is the range of skills and talents in this room with this number of people is quite staggering. Everyone has something to offer. Everyone has something they care about. And it's really about supporting carers to see themselves as members of that wider community, see themselves as assets in their own community, not just see themselves as carers. And actually, caring role is really important, but it's in a context. It's in a much wider context. And one of the things that we want to do is to work with carers to help feel positive about themselves and about their caring role as well. How's looking at me? I've got. I won't go on. Just to say on this one, partly as well because carers don't have that confidence sometimes, and because there's that stigma or they feel overwhelmed by things. They don't seek that support. We've looked at that earlier. The statistics are very low for mental health carers. I just wanted to draw your attention to this statistic. 42% of carers have missed out on financial support as a result of not getting the right information and advice. And that can actually cause a lot of the issues we've been talking about because they're not getting the right information and advice. But now the positive message is actually carers are not alone. There is an awful lot of support available. I've put here, hope is real and hope changes everything. And it's the job of all of us to give hope to carers and to support carers in our communities. And I've just put some of this, look, I mean, this is just a small sample of the support that's available out there for carers. And I'd really encourage any carers here or carers you know to sort of seek that support from ourselves, the new wellbeing service, you know, support through the triangle of care, support from peer support groups, Mind. There's a whole plethora of organisations out there, but it can be really difficult to navigate that. I won't go into the long spiel about CAP. Howard, you'll be pleased to know a vote is there, so I've ticked my box. Suffice to say that Carers Agency Partnership is a group of 7 charities, including the 3 mines in Norfolk, commissioned by Norfolk County Council and the 5 NHS clinical commissioning groups. And we are commissioned to support all carers in Norfolk. And we have a whole menu of services from a helpline that provides a listening ear, emotional support, to practical information advice, to some of our CAP locality leaders who are here today, who provide sort of that one-to-one advocacy and support and can help with a whole range of issues, from housing to benefits to emotional support to care packages, you name it, they can do it. And we've got other things like befriending and grants for learning, all sorts of things. If you want to know about that, please come and find me or one of my team, and we'll be happy to talk to you about that. And that's been Caring a Journey. Thank you.
Thank you.